Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to today's TIA Lunch and Learn webinar, Inflation, Disruption, and the Supply Chain, How to Prepare Your Company for the Future. My name is Anthony, and I am the Education Manager here at TIA, as well as your host for today's webinar. To begin, I'd like to cover some housekeeping items for everyone. First, I will read through TIA's antitrust statement. Hunter, if you could flip to the next slide, please. Thanks. Discussion, comments, and presentations during TIA functions must not 1. Refer to any past, present, or future rates, prices, or anything related thereto. 2. Include any reference to marketing strategies. 3. Include any discussion of boycotts of any person, product, or firm. Or 4. Inhibit any member's employees from discussing employment with other member companies. Additionally, things you hear during the webinar that are confidential and private to TIA should not be shared publicly without its prior consent or used against or in competition with TIA. Excuse me. And Hunter, if you could flip to the next slide, please. Thanks. For questions during the webinar, we have 2 options for you to choose from. Both are located at the Zoom control panel, which should be at the bottom of your screen. The first is the Q&A button. The second is the chat button. Submit your questions as you think of them throughout the webinar for the live Q&A session at the end using either option. Please note that if you use the Q&A button, only you and our presenters will be able to see your questions. But if you submit a question through the chat box, everyone in attendance of the webinar will see your message. Please note that due to the subject matter of this webinar, we may run a bit longer than our originally scheduled allotment of time, but we will do our best to stick to ending at 1 p.m. Eastern. As a reminder, this webinar will be recorded and available for review within 24 hours. You will receive an email with instructions on how to access the recording using your TIA account. And with that, I will hand it over to our presenters. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Anthony. To kick things off, we'll do some intros for the Zoom team. Mustafa, if you want to lead the way there. Mustafa, you want to kick things off from an intro standpoint?
Yes, sir. I got it. Sorry about that. I was on mute. Way to start the seminar there. So my name is Mustafa. I'm the founder and the CEO of Zoom. Went to UC Berkeley and studied supply chain economics. My first job was at JB Hunt, a large brokerage trucking company. Was with them for about 6-7 years. And then I led a fleet of trucks, about 30 trucks as a chief operating officer. And then seed founded Zoom about 6.5 years ago. Back to you, Hunter.
All right, sounds good. So Hunter Burke, VP of Client Experience here at Zoom app. Started by growing up in the industry at my family's 31-year-old freight brokerage. Then went to UW-Madison, where I studied supply chain management and operations and technology management, and was fortunate enough to get a job with Georgia Pacific in their transportation department. So working for one of the largest shippers out there in America. And then that group actually transformed from a transportation department into a top 10 3PL called KBX Logistics that manages over $2 billion in freight, and held a variety of leadership positions there in operations procurement before ultimately leading strategy in creating a digital freight marketplace called Load Shop. I then returned to my family's company to help upgrade their tech stack. And as part of that, evaluated a lot of companies, ended up bringing Zoom in to be our TMS and operating system. And liked what I saw so much there that I had to go and join the fun and help bring that to the rest of the industry, which leads me here today. So now we'll turn it over to Rob to round out the introductions.
I should have been first. It's a hard to win the follow there for both of you. Rob Montiero, I'm the Senior Vice President of Operations. Actually started in the industry in the mid-90s on the asset side of things. Early 2000s, moved over to the third-party logistics side. Last 15 years, really been more focused on the technology aspect of our industry, but excited to be here and be part of this webinar today.
All right, thanks, Rob. So from a agenda standpoint, what we're going to cover, we'll first give you an intro to Zoom and who we are and what we do, and then we'll dive into some industry pain points that we're experiencing today and talk through what those look like. And then, more importantly, tell you how you can prepare for the future considering those pain points. And we'll show you how we're creating technology to help with all of that. And we'll do a little showcase at the end with some screenshots to let you see what that looks like. So to kick things off, Mustafa will give you a little bit more about Zuum and who we are.
Yeah, so we started as a brokerage ourselves. We wanted to be a digital broker. And the reason we did that is we wanted to build the best TMS that was focused on dedicating carriers and lowering the acquisition costs for customers and carriers. So essentially, we became our own test dummy about 6.5 years ago through the Google ideation method. Now our goal is to basically enable all the freight brokers to have a tech stack that's really complementary, meaning like it has pricing, billing, and has all the shiny tools that a larger brokerage would do, but at an affordable price. So essentially, we wanted to bring the first agnostic platform to the market for freight brokers. And that's what we're going to be sharing with you guys today.
Perfect. So now that you know a little bit about Zuum, we'll dive into some of the pain points going on today. And the first one will be the significance of inflation in the supply chain. I certainly know, I'm one that doesn't usually pay close attention to prices when shopping. My wife will be the first to tell you that. But these days, definitely, paying more attention because, you're seeing it come across in everything from the food you buy to the goods, that you want. So definitely a timely topic. Where do you guys want to dive into first, Mustafa and Rob?
Yeah, so I think it's important to note like what we've experienced in the last 36 months, right? Or essentially, maybe the best to reference is the fact that if we look back to 2008, in 2008, we had a crash of sorts in the trucking industry and the economic collapse of our financial markets. And ever since that, we had a non-recession, non-depression economy for 14 to 15 years, moving up with very low inflation and great interest rates. And that has actually pendulumed and shifted. And those types of external macroeconomic trends essentially affect the trucking industry. But I remember when I started in logistics, it was really important to note that they said this thing like, whatever happens to truckers first signal an economic cycle shift. So if you look at the trucking industry, everybody talks about like rates to the trucking and driver shortage, which is an intrinsic problem the last 30 years, right? From 2010 to 2015, it was a pretty decent market. But if people recall, in 2015, we had the port strikes of Los Angeles. And for 5 years, it was just really bad rates to the trucking companies. And a lot of trucking companies that were thriving the previous 5 years went out of business. And then when COVID came back, it actually brought a resurgence back to the truckers and helping their pockets get some money. And then that has again crashed in the last 4 months. And I think one thing that might be a good thing to talk about is like understanding, which is kind of like our next topic, is how inflation actually leads into that.
Absolutely. And, obviously fuel pricing listed on there, a very hot topic in the transportation industry. That thing's been shooting up since the beginning of the year. We thankfully have been starting to see a little bit of a steadying out or retreat over the course of August and September. So hopefully, we're seeing the peak at that for at least the time being, and some relief can be there for the truckers.
Hey, Hunter, one of the things I wanted to add to in this conversation really is, the consumer spending has been exploding. E-commerce is skyrocketing. We have, higher demands for last mile, next day deliveries. A lot of these points here just added with the congestions and delays at the ports, at warehouses. And as you said, labor shortages has really caused, this increase of inflation.
Great points. Yeah, definitely makes for some interesting times right now that we're all living and working in. So, kind of shifting gears to the next pain point, we had COVID and the market shifted after that. And, what do things look like now? Where are we at?
Yeah. So what was a low season for the truckers and essentially like the brokers from 2015 to 2020 shifted because there's the resurgence of a new disease coming into the world, and essentially there was a ray of sunshine, because what that did is it actually convinced the shippers to pay more, with the rising costs. Before then, it was pretty static, like really low and squeezing the truckers. And till about 5 months ago, we had a peak season that people thought were going to go 3 or 5 years, but that shifted. Right now, it's interesting to note that even though capacity is low and essentially the truckers are getting almost like 2015 or 2017 pricing, how long will this last and how long can it last? Like how there's bubbles at the top, there's also bubbles at the bottom. There is a larger problem that has been going on for 30 years, which is like the driver shortage. And some people doubt it, but it should be noticed, that could come up again. A lot of trucking companies and logistics companies and brokerages invested heavily into their business in the last 2 years because there was more money and higher rates coming into our market. What is that going to do the next 2 years, and how long is this low season going to last? Most people don't remember this, but before like 2015, usually every year there's a low season, and you'd post out a load from January till March, and the phones would blow up and the truckers would do the load for any rate. And then in May and June, the rates would come up. Then summer water and beer would ship, and that would bring up a mini peak season as back to school came. And then that peak season would peak out in mid to late December, and then back to low season. Those cycles are gone. The cycles are now like not like 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Now it's like 2 years, 3 years. So it's a whole new dynamic that people have to readjust. And a lot of people assume that this low season will be short-lived. I'm one of those people, because I know that our supply chains internationally are broken, and also know that there is a real driver shortage problem.
Absolutely. Really good points. And, you had mentioned, obviously, there's been some loosening in the market going on as of late, but, there's almost like pockets of it and stuff. And you look at industrial production, that seems to be still going really strong, and flatbed pricing in particular, robust. So just interesting dynamics to, see different parts of the market really doing, different things at a, greater rate than before even.
Yeah. The other thing is, it's while we have like this loose capacity where shippers and brokers were investing into technology to lower their acquisition cost of capacity, they're almost shifting back to that, we'd always done it this way methodology because of this low season. Are we making a mistake doing that, going back to our old ways?
Seems to be the norm to revert and stuff, definitely. Curious, Rob, on your thoughts of the increase in spot market and, how that is playing against or I should say the increase in the spot market earlier in the year that, now is shifting more to contract business.
Right.
Any thoughts there on what you're saying?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, last year, pretty steady all year long. The spot market was crazy, right? Everybody needed help because there was lack of capacity out there. Lack of good capacity out there. There was even a time where it didn't matter whether you delivered or not, they just wanted it picked up, We saw that shift early this year where, we really saw I would say the rejection rate from contract freight dropped tremendously, and the spot market flattened, there was less spot going out there to the drivers, to brokers, shippers were tightening up on the contracts. They didn't mind paying a little bit more on the contract rates because they were saving such a huge delta from the spot market. We still see that today. I think that you're seeing a lot of brokers and gaining on that and having some difficulty in that mind shift to saying, hey, you know what, we need to change and go get contracted business. We saw a huge shift in our business here. We went from up to almost 75% now contracted with our awards. So it's a good thing to a point where it's going to have to level out here sooner or later. I personally feel that that we will see an influx with the capacity shortage in the next couple of months.
Yeah, I actually talked to a couple brokerage owners, and these are large brokerages, like 200 million plus. And one guy, 98% of his freight was spot freight. And I always heard this thing in the brokerage since I started in logistics that said, live by the spot and die by the spot, right? So everybody knows that there's a lot of contract and there's a lot of spot business, but every economist through the history of time has suggested for you to be a winner, you'd have to have a diversified methodology in how you attack your business. And second of all, everything comes down to your cost of operations and your cost of acquisition. If you have a low cost of acquisition for your carriers and a low cost of acquisition for your customers, because this is a double sale market, and you're working towards having your business run more streamlined without, running like a headless chicken on spot freight, then it's more controllable. And when systematic changes come out and surges come or pandemics come, you should be in a better place to weather that storm. However, if you're living by the spot, right, and basing your whole business model on that, then you should have a ton of technology that helps you mitigate those waters.
Absolutely, Mustafa. And I just want to add to that too, having the right systems and pricing algorithms and ability to to automate that spot pricing is what will make the difference and be able to live within that model. The old days of we haul type and spotting is going to be difficult for the broker in this industry.
Yep.
In these times.
So it's easy for us to say, hey, go buy more technology because we're a tech company, right? But let's keep it real. When I was a broker, what made me good was proactive check calls, response time, attention to detail, and relationships. I'm a very fast thinker. I multitask really well, and I pay attention to details. I remember when I was managing a branch, it was like the 80-20 rule. 80% of the people, man, they're not very fast at those things that some of these cheetahs are. So if anything, you have to focus in on building relationships with carriers. I can guarantee you that anything comes out in the market, if you have good friends that are carriers, that they'll take you through the storm. But the reality is, even I had limitations of technology when I wanted to automate those relationships and keep a core. Imagine all the salespeople before things like Salesforce, right? Those tools do help. So anything that helps you strengthen your carrier relationships to lower your acquisition costs or your back office cost of operations is mathematically a sound model to go after in terms of making money towards the business and being sustainable.
Yeah, really good call outs on relationships. Obviously, anyone that's been in this industry, knows the importance of those and how much they drive everything. Curious on your guys' thoughts with this, last question hanging out there. Are the effects of COVID neutralized? Been dealing with this for the past few years now. Where are we at?
Well, it just depends who we vote for. Basically, it's so weird, man, because the media controls a lot of the groupthink on the matter. So I would like to say I don't know. However, it seems like people are masking up less and less, and the worst of it we've passed. But just recently, I saw someone get a really bad case of it. So, but even with earthquakes, right? There's shocks, there's aftershocks. But I think for the most part, we're done. But it did leave its mark in the way that people operate. I'm sure a lot of brokerages are experiencing the fact that some of their employees, all of their employees want to go hybrid model. So if you want to go the hybrid model, you better have a lot of technology without even like argument, right?
Cloud-based technology at that, absolutely.
Do we force our employees to come in, or do we enable what they want in their lives and enable them with technology and monitoring stuff? I don't know, man. It depends. Everybody has a different philosophy on that.
I think unlike, football, the end of the pandemic will not be signaled by, a sharp whistle clearing the playing field and everything like that. It's just, I think we're still figuring out what this new normal looks like. And you mentioned things like hybrid and remote work, obviously here to stay, and we got to figure out how to, deal with those and optimize those within the workforce.
Yeah. And as leaders, you have to believe in the people that you empower to join your team. Micromanagement and a lack of trust will only take you so far. You could have the best tech system to monitor your employees' keystrokes or outbound calls, but good leadership and team alignment on the mission and believing in your company culture will do a lot more. And I say that as a tech company.
Well said. All right. Getting to a topic very near and dear to us all, especially on, National Truck Driver Appreciation Week, which, big shout out to all the drivers out there keeping America moving and, getting things to where they need to for all of us. But, what do you guys think about the driver shortage? It's, I think Mustafa, you had mentioned 80,000 has been the number, or a high number like that's been tossed out for, gosh, it feels like, 10 plus years now or even longer. It's going
to double in the next 5 years too, by what the Trucking Association is saying, ATA.
Yeah, I mean, there are some definitely younger people that are coming into the industry, but not like what was happening in like the 80s and the 90s. There definitely is a wane. I mean, yes, autonomous vehicles are coming, but not fast enough. And I bet you there's people listening to this right now that are doubting the driver shortage. Well, maybe it's not a lack of overall driver base, which I do believe that there is a problem there. Maybe it's a lack of good drivers. When I was managing that fleet of 30 trucks, I can tell you that we had 35 drivers, 5 local, 30 long haul, and we had 5 drivers over the age of 55, and they were our best drivers that would get the loads there fastest and had the best safety scores and never had issues. Always had issues with the younger drivers because they were always taking chances, and experience matters, man. And if we have less and less drivers coming into industry, those experienced guys are kind of disappearing. That's the issue I see. Is if you have a bunch of newer or less experienced drivers into the industry, then you're going to have a lot more problems in the industry. And I don't know if you know this, but us younger people, well, I consider myself young because I haven't turned 40 yet, which I'm like a year away from. But we have more needs, than the old school guys that are just like, I didn't have Instagram. I didn't have my 4-hour work week book that I was reading at truck stops and whatnot. I don't know. I'm still from that old school where I think hard work and education and experience kind of reigns supreme. And I think our industry is kind of lacking on that front. But we have to believe in the new generation coming in, right?
That we do. And Rob, you had mentioned, doubling of this driver shortage. I mean, what could that bring right there if, that pans out?
I wish I had it on me right now, but I had saw a post on LinkedIn that talked about, hey, if our drivers just stopped driving tomorrow, what would it be in the next 2 days and 3 days and weeks, really stop the economy. From my standpoint, I've always felt that drivers and carriers should be our partners, right? They're our customers as a broker. And I think if we don't make a change in the market with shippers really wanting to become the shippers of choice and, treating the drivers properly and us giving them a better work environment. If you think about it, what they're doing, they're driving all day long at night during late hours, right? By themselves. So the work environment for them currently, just on that part, isn't the best. So we've really got to look and make a shift to attract better quality drivers to our industry, and beef that up. There's a lot of things, even with AB5 and, the lack of benefits and so forth like that, that can really have a drastic effect in the next couple of years for our driver market.
Yeah, there's something wrong too. Like if you think about it, there's a guy that's driving through the night through black ice to make sure your daughter has diapers in New Mexico. And he's making less money than some 18-year-old kid doing sales on some technology company in Irvine, California. Like we got to balance the system out. Something's off. And I know for the people that think there is no driver shortage, there might be, there's a parallel analogy. Is there global warming or not? I don't know if you know this, but if you go to Lake Mead right now, the lake is completely dry and gone by Vegas. And there's like barrels of mob murders popping up. And we wait as a society until the adverse effects come and then say, okay, there is a driver shortage. Why not just invest in the solution, even more so? Like, I get it. Let's put $100 billion in funding into self-driving trucks that are going to fix the problem long-term in the next 20 years or 15 years. But why not take a tenth of that money and dump it into regulation to make sure that we pay drivers more now to spur people into it? And then we have like a lot of veterans coming back, right? Here's an idea. We have a lot of veterans coming back. Build a program that enables them to become drivers and pay them really good money like they deserve and have a win-win. But it seems like people, due to the COVID, have kind of stopped paying attention to that. And now with a new low season again for a few months, I think that's going to take a second blow towards really fixing that problem long-term.
Makes sense. And then we've got that last bullet, kind of hanging over us right now this week, obviously very timely with, what's going on in the labor or the rail industry. 40%, I believe, is the stat I saw of all freight in the US, moved by rail. So without that, wow, things could get interesting. If trucking had to pick up that slack, considering, 4 truckloads to 1 carload.
Yeah. So we went from like shippers having no inventory to like we have way too much inventory and we don't need transportation as much as we wanted to. And I bet a lot of that was mitigated through shifting their strategy towards intermodal and moving their goods over the rail. And now that there's going to be rail strikes, that might be the catalyst that ends this short-term low season and takes us into a peak season for the next 3 years, in my opinion.
Yeah, interesting one to keep an eye on, that's for sure. I know the whole industry will be. All right, so, we talked through some of the pain points. Now, how about setting your company up for the future as you're navigating these pain points? We've got some bullets, listed here around agility, making sure that, investment in technology, but being very, considerate and conscious about that. Where do you guys want to start first, Rob?
Want me to start with Mustafa?
Yeah, take it away, Rob.
Sure. Yeah. This is like I think is a really important topic here. When we're talking about what can a company do to prepare for the future. Really, to me, I think there's a couple of things that are really key. One is really having the right business intelligence, right? It's having that good quality data is key. Having that real-time visibility, having proper workflows will deliver that value that you need and that your customer needs. A couple other things with regards to adopting, and getting away from manual processes, automating your systems, getting away from that, what we say the siloed data flow, siloed systems and siloed capacity. You really need to be able to have a system that brings it all together, that gives that agnostic but collaborative access to good data to the right people at the right time, to drive actionable items and to get the results that we all want and need.
Well said. Data definitely a huge part there, and I love the actionable data at that you had mentioned.
Yeah, I think also it's important to note that given that there is like a mini low season and it's easy to find drivers, you have to be careful like on the freight that you accept, because the market might flip on you, and really focus on your core competency. So larger brokers like to scale towards more saltwater customers and take chances, but I think medium or smaller brokers should be really cautious. I say live by the spot and die by the spot. But if you're a small brokerage, you can't afford to onboard like a Nabisco at like 4% and take $20 million of freight, because, you know, everything is yin and yang and has its opposite side. Also, we're a technology company. So guess what we want you to do? We want you to invest in technology, right? But you have to be cautious when you invest into technology, and make sure that that technology is focused on making your business run more efficient. So that being said, like if you're focusing on shipments that essentially are ad hoc and they're random and they're never dedicated and they're never controllable, then you want to focus on more pricing and marketplace tools. Where if you have a lot of freight that is dedicated and repetitive, you want to focus on carrier acquisition and carrier management and back office optimization tools. If you focus on both of them, it could be expensive. The other thing that we have to be cautious is when you're buying technology, you got to push the salesperson to tell you what it is, how it brings you ROIs, how much it costs, and how fast it can implement. A lot of people don't see the opportunity cost or the technical debt of actually onboarding a new system and how long that takes. That's the one thing we champion at Zoom, is that we want you to have the system ready to go as fast as possible.
Really good points. Speaking of the investment in technology, so obviously, being cautious and considerate of, what you're trying to accomplish, but there's also the heightened customer expectations out there. And, we can thank some of our good friends at Amazon for, what some people call the Amazon effect, and, the B2C expectations bleeding over to the B2B world now. So technology, obviously plays a big part in that. You need a digital presence these days. First and foremost, you got to get that ROI from the efficiency that you're going to get by using, a technology or a system. But then there's also that really big soft benefit these days of just having that presence to your, current customers, and more importantly, your future customers as well, that, will really help set you up for success in the future.
Yeah, I also starting the trucking company, or becoming the chief operating officer of already their trucking company, and then starting Zoom. New founders fall into this trap that, like, I got to go spend $100,000 into my website and it's all about image, and that's a big trap. I wouldn't even walk in there. I would always just focus on carrier acquisition, customer acquisition, cost of operations, EBITDA. That's it. Which a lot of new business owners, they don't even focus on EBITDA or net profit. They just focus on bringing in, to the fake it to make it model. But it's better to crawl, walk, run, and a lot more manageable and de-risked in this weird economy when we don't know what tomorrow is going to bring.
Mustafa, I've seen this play out time and time again as you're talking with our customers. It's amazing. They think they, need this really big, great thing. And, through some really great conversation, we're able to get them a better solution that may not be, as much as they were initially thinking that they need. And, in the long run, that turns out a lot better for the customer and us to get that right fit for them and go from there.
Yeah, in fact, like there's been customers that came to us that wanted to buy 100 widgets, and we're like, dude, you don't need that. You only need 20. And then you form this bond with that customer forever because you did that for them and they noticed that. And a lot of people don't do that. And that's what, like how you retain customers long-term through integrity, which is a big part of this whole game that we're talking about.
Absolutely. We had mentioned enabling, the team and trusting your team members. So, that kind of related to focus on culture and employee retention. I think one of the big ways to do that is, you combine that second bullet of automating, and you can take out some of the mundane tasks that, may not be as attractive, and automate those, and, really bring some big benefit to your organization and the team members that are part of it, so they can focus on, some of the more fun revenue generating type of tasks. Rob, anything that, you see there that you would like to share with in that regard?
I didn't realize I was on mute. No, I think that's a very good point, Hunter. And it really has a big effect on culture. If an employee doesn't enjoy what they're doing, or they don't feel like they're accomplishing something, or don't feel like they're winning, right? It's demoralizing. In our industry, we deal with problems every day. And I always tell people, hey, the bigger problems you can deal with, the bigger your paycheck can be. I think it's very important especially with the shift in, I would say, our supply chain, and kind of where it's at today and where it's going to go in the future, is that you've got to be able to be more efficient, and give tools to your employees to be more efficient and win. Having, gamification systems, to having the CRM for carriers that Mustafa talked about, to being able to have that visibility to where to have that procurement, that capacity pull from, can increase their loads per day from 4 to 12. And I think that those type of things will give an employee the opportunity to feel like they're winning, that they're contributing significantly to the company's goal, and be part of making the company successful.
Yeah, and then also one thing that helps retain employees big time is making sure they align with their managers and their leaders and the culture that they have. So that's like super important. And you could do that through technology, essentially. It's funny that I remember when I started my career, it was like nobody would ever think to dare leave the office at 5 p.m. if there was a shipment uncovered in the 20 branch members, to now nobody would think to dare to call an employee to tell them, hey, you have to be in the office 5 days a week. So we're not like in the same generational thing of getting people to buy in, but work ethic remains supreme through millennia. And there's always people that work hard and sacrifice if they believe in the mission and their leadership. And technology does play a big part in that. If I'm doing a monotonous task that makes me do 80 clicks every day, I got a problem with my leadership, man, because there's another buddy I have in another company that does everything in 2 clicks. Why don't we have that?
The young workforce cares about that too. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, we got our showcase next, but, before we move on to that, any, final words on the pain points of preparing for the future, Mustafa or Rob?
Yeah, one last point. Like we didn't touch on the collaboration, the co-opetition, and universal integrations. So we're about to show you the best system that has ever been built for 3PLs. But we have to say that with humility, because there's a lot of people that have a different opinion and not like one of our modules and might like something off the shelf. So the way that we built Zoom is we built a platform that connects the shipper, the carrier, and the broker on a super platform, and has billing, pricing, tracking, carrier database. But what's cool about Zoom is we work with all our competitors. We're integrated to all the load boards, all the tracking apps, even though we have tracking. And I think if you're going to bring a holistic solution that's going to help stakeholders stand up on their feet, lower their acquisition costs, increase their lifetime value with their customers, you need to have a fair compromise system that will integrate into their fair stack if they want something third party.
Well said. You can kind of see a overview of some of our different features and modules that we have here. We'll take a closer deep dive into these with some screenshots of the actual application as well here.
Yep. So everything Hunter's going to show you guys is going to be focused on really those 3 things: lowering the carrier acquisition cost, increasing the employee load per day ratio and lengthening the lifetime value of a customer and a carrier.
Let's check it out. All right, so, first one we're sharing here is the automated shipper portal. So as part of, our broker platform, you get to hand technology to your shippers and your carriers. If they're only able to interact over email and phone, well, you have to go down and do that same thing. So by enabling them with digital tools and technology as well, you can all become more efficient together. Here's an example of how a shipper can log in, look at, enter, a few pieces of information, pick up destination, what the equipment is, and pick up date, and then get an instant quote. You will notice throughout these screenshots that the prices are blurred out, as per the requirements of doing this type of webinar through TIA. So just wanted to make mention of that. The other thing is, we are very big on white labeling and letting your brand shine as the broker. So although you see Zoom's logo and colors here, this can be just like that, branded and made to look however your company or your brokerage wants it to look and feel. So when your customers are logging in, they know it's you and that you're the one with that great technology. So once they can book, get an instant rate and book it if they want. They also have the flexibility, should they be looking, maybe have some lead time and really be price conscious, and they're looking for a lower price, they can actually name their target price that will allow it to go out to your carrier network at a predetermined margin set by yourselves, so that you don't have to necessarily take on the risk of saying, hey, we'll move it for that low price, but we're not sure, a carrier is going to be interested. Now you can give them that chance to put it out to your carrier network and see if, anybody has a backhaul that may be able to move it at that, more aggressive rate the shipper's looking for. So really giving options. Those previous two, go for it, Mo.
One thing I'll piggyback on is that last shipper portal we showed the team. A lot of shippers just send the loads over EDI because they don't want to use a lot of brokers portals. But what's one thing that's unique is because we built everything universal and RESTful API, we could connect this to the shipper's ERP for on all these systems. So Zoom is flexible in that if this needs to be integrated to the customer's system and they don't want to get off their system and this just be a portal attached to that, we can do that.
Really great call out. Yep, definitely, I'd say the larger enterprise shippers out there connecting via EDI or API, but, a smaller to medium one that may not have a TMS, this is a great tool to be able to hand them, and a, great marketing tool at that as well. So now switching to, more of like the broker side of the platform and what you can see, this is actually continuing off that last example where a shipper would have, entered the load details, got a rate from your brokerage that you would have set yourself. And then if they would have proceeded with that, it would have flowed over to the broker, the broker side of the platform, where then, the next thing would be securing capacity on that load so you can get it moved per the requirements. This particular screenshot is showing how you can post to multiple marketplaces at once. So rather than having to go out to DAT, truckstop.com, 123 load board, and separate web browsers, log in, rekey in all that information you've already got in your system. Now with one click, you can post out to all those places. And just as importantly, when you do assign it to a carrier, it's going to automatically pull it off all those places as well. So you don't leave those loads hanging out there and continue to receive calls on loads that aren't actually active.
Yeah, it was important for us to partner with the load boards because I'm a big fan of the external load boards. And I don't know if you worked at large brokerages, but you also use internal load boards within your other branches and agents. And for us, we understand the plight of digital brokers wanting to displace load boards, but we think load boards are a great friend to the broker, and we want to enable and sell more of their product on our platform. And we always think they're going to have a place. So kudos to those guys, and thank you for letting us integrate with you as a friend.
Very thankful for that partnership. And one other thing, in addition to being able to post to the external load boards, You also have your own private digital marketplace to be able to post to your own internal carrier network and be able to digitally book or bid. That's also shown here on where it says Zuum Marketplace next to the truck stop and DAP ones. And so what that looks like for the carrier then is they have this, way at getting at your loads and seeing it in one central spot and being able to, find the right loads for them really easily. So here's a couple of screenshots, both in mobile on the left and desktop on the right. If you cue in on the desktop on the right, you can actually see there's some reload details on the right-hand side. So, you may be looking for one load, but the system will actually help you identify if there's complementary legs, on the back end of that. So you can string together multiple loads at once and, really get a lot of efficiency out of that.
Yeah, so one of your branches might have another load and another branch might have another. We could couple them together for the carrier and keep them moving.
And of course, need that, omni-channel presence and mobile and desktop for carriers.
I want to give you a time check there that we have probably like 10 minutes before we have to go into Q&A.
Oh, perfect. You know what? That sounds good. Even maybe 5 if we can try and get there. So this one is our dynamic smart rate screen. So from a pricing standpoint, you have all your intelligence in one spot to be able to make quick decisions and good decisions at that. You know what? Actually, I take that back. This, because we embed our rate information in so many spots, so you don't have to click in different ones. This is actually when you're looking for carriers. You can look for your previous carriers that have hauled this and quickly, identify who those are, shoot them out an email blast if you want, or they can click a link, digitally book or bid, or you can search for external carriers through our partnerships with the load boards Mustafa was just talking about, while getting that rate information all at once. Once the, you do find the carrier that you want, we make it really easy then to secure that capacity and lock it down and, make sure everyone knows the right details of the load. So you can send the electronic rate confirmation that's going to come over to the carrier's mobile or desktop. They can do a quick e-signature on that, and that automatically is going to flow back into your system, as well as always be in the carrier web portal for them to access should they want to reference it at any time. Kind of continuing on with the life cycle of the load. So once you get the rate con signed and moving on to the execution phase, we do have a built-in mobile app included in our broker platform that you can use with your carriers. So that's where they can also view the loads of yours that you're putting out there, but then they can also track through the execution phase in that same app in a really seamless manner. And then, of course, all those tracking updates are going to roll over to the your side of the platform, so you can be up to date and keep your customer up to date. On the bottom of the screen, you can just kind of barely see there's a carrier section. It'll indicate whether they're on tracking, whether that's iOS or Android. Also, as part of that, you can actually text directly with the driver back and forth. So, maybe they get to the delivery, they're not sure where to go. You have a really easy, quick stream of communication to be able to help them find the right spot and get that load to where it needs to be.
That would probably be the #1 used feature of all Zuum, the text to driver, because it's a low barrier to entry, right? They don't even have to download the application, and you're connected to our platform through a system that everybody uses. We're also working on WhatsApp soon as well.
All right, so now that we've got, kind of through the execution phase, we've got a very, streamlined accounting process as well that, we, for the sake of time, didn't include in here. But next we wanted to show off our dynamic smart rate. So here's some more of that pricing intelligence. And you'll see a box over on the right side, kind of in the middle, called Zuum current price to shipper. And, this would say whatever broker's name, current price to shipper. It's the same one that will appear in the shipper's web portal that you can hand them, so that when they, need capacity, they can quickly get an instant rate and secure that through your brokerage. Now, how is that rate determined? It's determined through an algorithm that you actually control the levers on yourself. And we call that the universal touch. So within the universal touch, you can really dial in your pricing to your unique operating strategy. We have a whole list of different load characteristics that'll drive the pricing, and you can pick whether you want to start with, DAT, truckstop.com, Sonar, etc., and then adjust that pricing from there based off the various load attributes and how much you want to consider those. So a same day load obviously costing more than a next day, or a 2+ day lead time load, heavier load costing less than a lighter load, those types of things. And you can split that up by equipment as well as geography as well.
Yeah, and you can also parse that data by mode and also by customer.
And the really cool thing too is to help dial in that pricing, you can run a whole bunch of tests and see, here's what it was. If I make this tweak, here's what it is. And that's what's showing up there in those blue boxes right now, with a lot of the pricing, rates blacked out. The other thing, service, paramount, starts and stops with service. So you need to be able to keep track of that. We've got very robust reporting capabilities. And here's just, example of some service reports, whether you want to look at the operator, the, customers that are involved with that, the carriers. You can slice and dice it in many different ways to get at that information. And as part of our system, you will get a carrier database, or essentially a carrier relationship management module. We for the sake of time, can't show off the slick digital onboarding process we have, but you can see within the carrier database, once you click in there, you get a whole bunch of information on the carrier, from where they like to run, how they've been doing for you, what their service is looking like, how much you're generating in profit off the loads that they're hauling for you, all that good stuff. As well as you'll notice that 5-star rating up there. So very similar to a Yelp rating. Internally after a load, you can have all your team members give a quick 5-star rating, so that next time around whether you want to use them again. Zoomanity. So this one really hits home with trying to get that good culture, as well as engage the workforce, especially that younger generation. So this is actually taken from one of our spec sheets. So you'll notice like the red numbers up there, and those are correlating to different parts of the screen and what drives it. But you can set up KPIs for things that you care about and really get a holistic approach to drive the right behavior. So rewarding them for things like pre-covered loads, using repeat carriers, the things that are really going to drive efficiency and good service for your business. And you can then set coins for those different KPIs and weight them, based off how much you want to incentivize your employees to drive towards those actions. And then, the really magic in all of this is creating that kind of competition in the scoreboard, arcade-like style, and really get, everyone racing towards the top to try and be at the top of the scoreboard. Mo, I know you love this one. So anything else to add on Zoomanity?
No, it's important to note that we built it for ops, sales, and support, and then the management's there, and then we could brand this to whatever you'd like. And the part that I like is that as a manager, once I set it, I can forget it and it counts itself, and I don't have to manually count these every day. It's like Angry Birds, man. It's addictive. When we talked about employee retention, we talked about lowering customer and carrier acquisition costs. This all automatically drives through the trigger marketing technologies, that marketers thought of years ago. So it gets me going, and I'm an old broker. So
hey Mo, I actually think it's more like Candyland than it is Angry Birds.
Like the Candyland analogy. No, it's a fun one for sure. Definitely unique, and we'd love to show this off to anyone that's interested. Some ones that we have upcoming here is Capacity AI. It should say is the name of the feature here, and really help you find the right load carrier for the load. And so tapping into some really unique data sources and creating this match score that then can help you determine which carriers to reach out to first, because they're likely in the best position to haul that load. Lane Seeker, so being able to put out dedicated load opportunities to your carrier network and collect pricing on those, and then lock in that pricing for a, specific period of time. And that's a dynamic period of time that, you can choose. Obviously, mini bids have, become more of the thing these days, that the market conditions change quicker than before. So we're really excited about this feature that, is coming soon to our platform.
I think it's time to move to Q&A, man.
Let's do it. So last thing I'll show you, just because we're almost to the end. Here's the shipper TMS that you can, hand to your shippers if you got a really strategic relation with them. They can obviously, get pricing from you, but then they can also use it with their other carriers. And if you've got that strategic relationship with them, you can share the reporting on it and help, point out where they can do better.
Yeah, this elevates the 3PL to the 4PL, and you bring more value and stickiness to your shipper or your carrier.
Absolutely. And similarly, this is actually a carrier TMS that you can hand your carrier partners as well, and help them, they can put in their own loads, and then it'll actually, similar to the reload feature before, help complement their freight with, your freight that you have posted as well in a really seamless manner.
So these last two tools for the carrier and shipper were beyond a portal. They were like almost like a system that you enable them with that's agnostic. So, Anthony, are you there? Want to chime in here?
Yes, sir. We've got a few questions to go over. Again, everyone, if you still have any questions and you haven't sent them in, you can send them in through the chat or the Q&A button. So we can get right into it. The first question: the most difficult thing we are facing currently is carrier tracking. Is there anything that your system offers that can help with obtaining a higher tracking percentage?
Yeah, so number one, we have our own proprietary tracking, and it's connected to the marketplace, so that'll save you money. But we also integrate with all our friends out there, like P44, For Kites, Trucker Tools, MacroPoint, anybody that's there. Yeah, we're agnostic, so we integrate with them. And then that text messaging feature Hunter showed you, that whole schema put together is a really good strategy to improve your tracking percentage. And then we have tools that you can measure how well you guys are doing on that with an export.
Perfect. On to the next. Jason asks, in this current market, obtaining good employees is very difficult. Labor costs are also a major issue in running a successful brokerage. Does your system have anything in place to help with efficiency of labor needs?
Rob?
You're on mute right now, Rob. I think I hear you speaking in the next room.
Yeah. I'm sorry, you said efficiency with labor needs?
Correct.
Yeah.
Maybe, Mo, do you understand what the question is asking? I don't quite understand the question.
Yeah, I think we answered it earlier. So essentially, it's really about attracting and retaining your employees. I think Zoomanity, that gamification portal, kind of answers that question. And ultimately, we need to make sure that the employee feels enabled and he's not doing monotonous tasks. And that's what we did, is how do you take 40 clicks and turn it into 2 clicks? I think I can answer this for like 20 minutes. So maybe we should go to the next question. Back to you, Anthony.
Thanks, Mustafa. On to the next question. Do you think that transportation will be one of those winners over the short, medium, and long term? If so, why do the powers that be recognize that logistics is critical?
I'm going to take a stab at this one. I mean, I think if you saw anything over the past, few years with COVID, supply chain and transportation in particular has become front and center. And people are realizing that, it's a huge thing and can be a competitive advantage at that when you get it working right. So absolutely, I think transportation, is going to continue to, get more of the limelight and, as a result, also have more money pouring into it and, create a lot of great solutions as a result of that. So definitely winning.
I don't think we're going to stop needing stuff. As long as you need stuff, transportation is going to be important.
Well, I also think, with COVID and all the capacity crunches that we had, I think it woke everybody up, and I know that even from from CEO's level, them looking at their P&L, the logistics cost has increased tremendously, right? and you start seeing it now from 7% up to 30% of your costs, you know, your OpEx costs, it brings light to it. And, you know, they want to focus on it. They want to get efficiencies. They want to bring technology gains to their company.
Last question. You want me to read it? Customer acquisition is a growing concern. Less shippers are utilizing brokerages for their moves. How do you feel that this trend will look in a few years? Well, shippers like brokers a couple months ago. Now they don't, right? Because the capacity is low. I think if you're a broker, what's really important is differentiating yourselves. And the one thing about Zoom is that you can get our core stack, and then the 30% you can customize or add your own stuff to it to have your secret sauce to differentiate yourself. That's the best thing about Zoom, is that universalness that lets you really differentiate yourself. And if everybody has the same system, then how are you different to that shipper? Like that last piece we showed you guys, giving a shipper a managed logistics system that's agnostic, that makes you different. Okay. If you add your own flavor to it, it's going to take you over the top.
Amo, can I just add something to that too?
Yep.
Yeah, you know, I think traditionally, you're right. When capacity isn't as tight, you know, shippers tend to move away from brokers. That's why I think it's really important that through that relationship, you know, I'm speaking to all brokers here, is make sure that you don't take advantage of the market conditions, right? At certain times, you know, Mo had said it earlier. It's building that trust, building that relationship, building that long-term value to the customer. And, you know, I could say wholeheartedly that if you have a system that provides them ease of business, quick visibility to where their shipments are at, and you're going to have a client for a long time. We've actually grown with some of our, you know, Fortune 100 customers in this time during this this capacity that has lightened up because of that.
Where can they get a demo of Zoom?
Head to zoomapp.com, ZUMAPP.com, and you'll see a spot to, you know, reach out for a demo, and we'd love to show off our technology. You know, what do they say? A picture's worth 1,000 words. Well, a video's worth 1,000 pictures. So come check it out.
Thank you, TIA, for the platform. We love what you guys are doing. Hope you keep it up forever.
Thank you, Mustafa. Yep, that leads into a good segue to wrap everything up for the day. Thank you, Zoom, for hosting the webinar today. And thank you, Mustafa, Hunter, and Rob. I believe the next slide has your contact information for anyone who wants to reach out directly. But as Hunter mentioned, for demos, please see the Zoom app website. For more Lunch and Learn information, you can click the link in the chat. And with that, we will wrap up the webinar. Again, you will get an email sometime later today or early tomorrow about the notice of the recording. And again, for more Lunch and Learn webinars and to register, please click the link and you can sign up for future webinars there. Thanks again, Zoom, and thank you again, Mustafa, Rob, and Hunter, for your time today. And with that, we'll close it off. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your time.
Thank you,
guys.
Thanks.